Hello everyone, my name is Sam. Welcome to my channel. And today I'd like to do something I've never done on my channel before, and that is a location filming video. About 35 years ago, right here in Nashville, Tennessee, there was a movie filmed named Ernest, Scared, Stupid. And when I was a kid, Ernest was everything. I mean, I loved the movies, the TV show, and the commercials. I really liked the commercials. And we would go in my little hometown of like 6,000 people, we'd go to Video Elite or Budget Video, and we would rent on VHS tapes the commercials, the Ernest commercials. And they were what, 35, 40 minutes long each, and you would just see commercial after commercial, and I wore those tapes out. So every year, as it starts to get kind of cooler, my wife and I will pull out Ernest Scared Stupid and give it a watch. And last year, as we were watching, it occurred to me that I recognized most of the places where this was filmed. And I know that like half of the Ernest movies were filmed in Nashville. And so I turned to YouTube just to see, hey, where were these locations that I didn't recognize, you know, that sort of thing. See if anyone had any good location filming videos. And there's a couple out there, but they just weren't as exhaustive as I would have liked to have seen. They didn't show all the places that I recognized. And so I thought maybe I will give it a shot at filming a location shooting video for Ernest Scared Stupid. So I'd like to take you with me along on that. I've done a lot of research, Reddit and Facebook and old newspapers and forums, and I think I have found about 98% of the places that this movie was shot. And so I'd love to take you along with me and check those out. We're going to start in a section of town called East Nashville, and then we'll head out from there. So it's surprising. Most of the locations are still there today, and not all of them are exactly the same, but a lot of them are still there, and you can still see at least the bones of what used to be there. So come along with me, please, and let's have some fun. We are beginning here in East Nashville. It's a lovely morning. We're in a section of East Nashville called 5 Points, as you can see from the mural. Notice the tomato on the window there. This intersection right here is what they're referring to when they say 5 Points. It's mainly Woodland Street and 11th coming together, and then as Woodland Street runs out that way, it's a different road. Clearview Avenue over there is also connected. Well, look, we have a walk, so we're going to take this walk. So we're going to almost get hit by two different cars because they don't understand how walk symbols work. That's fine. Walking across the street here, we have a lovely little garden, and then this building right here, which currently houses a restaurant named Margot. It is across the street from Cumberland Hardware and a restaurant. Looks like Party Foul is coming soon, but it has been a number of restaurants over the years. Different things have been in that building. But if we look back over here, we have Margot, and this is the building that they used for the sheriff's office in Ernest Scared Stupid. This area of town, known for its Tomato Arts Festival, so you can see the tomatoes, which are painted on the ground. And then across the street, this was the main downtown strip of Briarville in Ernest Scared Stupid. You can see Cumberland Hardware there. Plastic, tools, glass, screen listed. So this is kind of the shot from the film where you could see the main part of town looking down the street. Walking back across the street here, we can start to see the sidewalk. We can see Margot here from across the street. Get a little better, more zoomed out view of the place. In the film, they had a shot that was kind of taken from the edge of the road where you could see all of the harvested like corn stalks bunched up around street signs and things, and the Cumberland Hardware here was decorated up to look like the store where Ernest bought all of his troll things. This movie shot in May through July, and it's my understanding the crew had a hard time finding a lot of Halloween decorations, and the place looked like it was summer, as you could see by all of the different leaves that were on the trees and things like that. So they had to do a lot of set design of different stuff to kind of simulate that Halloween look. This store clearly hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 30-something years. It's been kind of the one solid place that has been here. You can see where it says tools, and you can see Cumberland Hardware. There was a big sale sign up over that in the movie, but you can identify where it says tools and glass right there. That was still shining through. This building here, I believe, was made up to look like a funeral home, although I don't think it ever was. However, looking down the street right here, this is where Ernest ran down the street yelling about the trolls, warning everyone that there were going to be trolls coming. So let's wander down the street here, and we're going to turn and go down the alley. Make a little left up here. Rush hour might not have been the ideal time to come do this, but that's kind of when I had a free moment today. So we're going to take the alley here and get into this parking lot of a business called Beyond the Edge. And Beyond the Edge, or at least the parking lot for Beyond the Edge here right off of 11th Street, is where Ernest had his trash truck mopping, trash can cleaning device, where he has a little incident where he gets stuck in the trash truck, but the kids come and rescue him. So that was all filmed right here in this parking lot. You can see back here, zoom in for a second, that white house with the kind of square top. In the movie, it was a red brick house, but many houses here in Nashville have been converted from red brick to painted white brick, and this one was just a victim of that. Right in front of it, that blue building, is Fanny's House of Music. It can be seen in the background also. And if we walk on up through the parking lot here, this is the alley and the sidewalk that the kids walk down when they happen upon Ernest having a little issue with his trash truck. So right over there is the alley, and then that blue building right there is the now music store that I believe was maybe just a house back then. Not totally sure. Let's walk down the street here to what used to be Bill Martin's Foods. We are walking about 2 blocks down from 5 Points. We've crossed the street, and here on our left, as we approach 11th and Fatherland Street, we have a building that used to be a supermarket, and that supermarket was named Bill Martin Foods. And Bill Martin's was here for quite a while, from at least the 60s up through 2019, as far as I can tell, is when it closed. The building got renovated and completely updated, and this medical facility was created here in East Nashville, but for a long time it was Bill Martin's Foods. This building was used for interiors and exterior shots when they are at the supermarket. Most of the times that they're at the supermarket, they're looking for milk, and that milk was always provided by Purity Dairy. If you don't know about the history of the Ernest character, Jim Varney actually worked for an ad agency who created commercials for Purity Dairy all the way back into the 70s. He had a couple of characters. There was a Hungarian ringmaster and a drill sergeant character that did really well as far as commercials go when it comes to Purity Dairy. And then eventually they created the Ernest character for Purity Dairy, and of course he did thousands and thousands of other commercials. So anytime that they were looking for milk, they were in this building doing all those supermarket scenes. And then also, of course, the exterior used to be very different. It was used for all those exterior scenes too. As we can see from the sign, it is still called Martin Corner, I guess as a throwback to the fact that Bill Martin Foods was here. I have no idea if the same people still own it or if they just decided to keep the name or something like that. So in 1982, they had the Ernest character, and he started doing the Purity Dairy commercials, and that's where all of this Ernest stuff came to be. If we come over here to the corner, we can see that pretty much every building at this intersection has been redone pretty significantly. However, if we look at footage from the film, we can see that right over here at Wax Nashville, that building, I don't believe, has been redone very much. You can see those columns there of kind of yellowish brick and dark red brick. Both of those are in the film, and this telephone pole that happens to be right there, we can see Kenny as he rides his bike. We can see that the building that is now Wax Nashville was in the background. There used to be a phone booth here, but clearly those are pretty hard to find anywhere in the world nowadays. So let's turn around and we're going to walk over to Holly Street now, and we'll look at a couple more places. Okay, we backtracked just a little bit and we are over on Holly Street right now. Holly Street, big residential street, but being so close to Five Points, it tends to fill up with a lot of cars on the street, in addition to just being for housing, normal parking. This particular street had a couple of filming locations, one of which is essentially this intersection that we're coming up to here at 12th and Holly. If we look here across the street, we see this large red brick house. And this house was in a scene with Ernest and the kids in the trash truck driving and getting essentially pulled over by the sheriff. And one of the movie magic things they did here is they clearly shot the scene between Ernest and the sheriff out here in the street. And you can see by looking at the street, let me slowly pan around here, Holly Street has this massive hill, and that's definitely the direction that the sheriff came from, was up from that hill. However, clearly, if this truck was, if the this red house was on the passenger side of the truck for all of the shots of Ernest and the sheriff together, they only got his establishing shot driving up from that other street because it looks better, and then they flipped everything around, and probably so they didn't have to relight it, they then filmed all of the sheriff's stuff from this same angle too, because it appears to me, I stand in the middle of the road trying to make sure nobody's coming, this house back here in the background is a house that can be seen over the sheriff's shoulder. I think it was blue back then, but I believe it's the only way that you could have this red house be in the shot with that house over the sheriff's shoulder if you just shot everything from one direction, which is pretty common in the film industry, just to save some time. This part of East Nashville has changed pretty significantly since the movie was shot, mainly because in 1998 and then again in 2020, there were two really powerful tornadoes that came right through East Nashville. And the one in 2020 specifically came down Holly Street. It's hard to tell by looking at the trees here because they weren't super affected by it. However, if you go down this road and over that hill, the trees there are pretty decimated. They have this little park set up now. This little park here was attached to a church. I think it was a Methodist church. Probably about 2009 or so. One of my friends had a band and they needed a choir recorded. And so we came to this Methodist church that was up here on the right and recorded a choir singing inside the church building. But now, just past what looks like a house but is the church offices, you can see that there's kind of a big blank spot with fencing around it. And around that fencing is where that church was. And the tornado damaged that church so badly that it just had to be completely torn down. And so there was a lot of places here along Holly that had significant damage, especially the further you go down Holly as you get closer to the golf course and Shelby Park, where we're going to go next. It definitely sustained a ton of damage down that way. It was a major tornado back in 2020 that went for 70 miles all the way from one side of Nashville to the other. This blank lot here, try to look past the chain link fence, can't do that too well, used to be where the church was, and it's been completely and totally removed. These stairs that used to go up to the church went right to the front door. If we look here, looking at across the street, we can see this kind of concrete wall that is set up in front of that house as I head down the stairs without falling down. And that is the second filming location on Holly Street here. We can see this group of houses that are along the way is where Ernest ran down the street telling everyone to be careful and watch out for the trolls, warning everyone. So trees are certainly different. I'm sure that the tornado affected the trees quite a bit, but maybe not. Time and all that also heavily affects trees. Let's get out of the street, see if I can show you all a picture of that side of the street that looks a little bit more like the film. We can compare it side by side. It's an interesting drawing. I don't condone defacing public property, but it's still kind of neat when it looks good. So somewhere along here, they clearly had a different lensing situation than I did. But that wall right there with the fence, those two houses with the porch and everything, really interesting architecture over here on the east side. A lot of cool houses and things. Up next, we're going to go down Holly Street, all the way down Holly Street until we get to Shelby Park. So let's head that way. Another minor place in East Nashville in the film was this house, which was a location on Electric Avenue. And if you look right here, it's the exact same rock. On our way to Shelby Park, figured we'd look at this little location. Currently, we are at one section of an area in East Nashville known as Shelby Park. It's actually a really big park that was created in 1912. It runs along the river. After the flooding in 2010, they added a bunch of ground to it. And this is just one part that is now mainly a disc golf course, as far as I can tell. There's also a regular golf course, but it is not in this particular section. So as far as I can tell, most of the outdoor shots where you see the forest or the woods were shot here. From all of my research, that's what it indicates. I saw some reports that they were shot at the old naval building, which is actually just down this hill next to the river. It is being demolished, and this entire road is closed that goes down there to it, so I can't get down there directly. But somewhere, and I don't know, this disc golf course is reasonably new, so all of this particular scenery looks like a lot of the places where the townspeople deal with the troll, where the kids have their clubhouse all torn apart, and where Ernest troll trap takes place, which is kind of a big dumpster looking thing. But that's what he knew, the trash truck business. So those were all very close to each other, if not shot in the exact same place, as far as I can tell. Don't know the exact locations, but you will see that the vegetation in Shelby Park is very rich and green, and like most of Tennessee. And where we're going to go next is definitely not that. If you're familiar with Ernest Scared Stupid, you'll know that most of the film revolves around a big tree in a scary forest, which eventually gets a treehouse built in it. I don't want to disappoint anyone, but that forest and that tree were not a real place. They were made by some very talented set designers and prop artists, and I actually found a video online where someone looked all over Shelby Park for the big tree, but it was definitely not real. The soundstage was, however, located in East Nashville, and it was in this building, which today it's the home of a nonprofit, but for a long time it was a shoe factory. And for a brief moment of time, a few months in 1991, this, I don't know, I think I've read it's a 100,000 square foot building, was transformed into a dark, scary forest using 3,000 cubic feet of soil, real insects, and living trees. So you can see all of the scenes that were shot on the soundstage. That wooded area looks completely and totally different. You can see a transition from the real stuff, the things that are green, much like we have along here, along the side of Ellington Parkway, and all of a sudden they're in a place where most of the vegetation is pretty brown, so definitely a difference. The pivotal treehouse and several other sets and trees were all made out of steel and foam, and I read on, there's a website, the dicebewrollin.wordpress.com, link in the description, that the big fight scene at the end, the pizzas used by the kids that they lobbed at the trolls were the same prop pizzas that were used on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, because Doug White, the prop artist, worked on both films at about the same time. So all of the troll fighting, treehouse magic happened right here in this building when it was, for a while, a soundstage, a film set created by industry professionals. Let's go see where Old Lady Hackmore lived. Old Lady Hackmore, which was played by Eartha Kitt, lived in a very interesting looking mansion in the film. This is a real house that still exists today in Nashville, but it's technically on the southern side of Nashville, not in East Nashville, on a somewhat busy road named Franklin Road. When they shot this movie, this house was under renovation, and it seems they paused those renovations to let the movie film there. So if you look really closely at some of the scenes, you can see that there aren't any walls inside of the house, just stud walls. Ernest sticks his head through a couple of them sometimes. All of the metal sculptures and the barrels with the fire in them were, of course, added by the set design team, but the literal bones of the building, the walls, the columns out front, are still identical to this day. I found a few photos when this house was sold a while back of the interior, and it's not really recognizable since it has walls and the house at the time was gutted and being renovated. But clearly from the outside, it is still the same place. Pretty interesting how much that they put in there, various things. Hard to get a good shot since it is, of course, on a very busy road. And it's somebody's private house, so I don't want to get too much more involved other than that. But there it is. Quite literally just around the corner from what was the Hackmore place exists this building, Robertson Academy. It is a public school, part of the Metro Nashville public school system. This building is where they shot all the school scenes. There's a little plaque over here. Figured I'd read it for those history folks, because this is actually a pretty historic building, whether it was used in an Ernest movie or not. That just makes it sort of extra special, I guess. But Robertson Academy was established in 1806, which there was some kind of a Tennessee General Assembly meeting where they passed a law that made sure that all 27 counties had a school. And this has been in operation ever since then, 1806. Same thing on the other side of the sign here. Interesting building. The interesting part, though, is up here. So let's go for a little walk along the way. Robertson Academy is, as far as I can tell, the location for all of the scenes that take place in a school. I don't have a way to verify that the gymnasium that was used for all of the interior shots is here at this building, but I have a pretty good idea that it is, just from some of the things I saw having to do with a few windows and things like that, and not to mention the fact that this building would have been empty. They shot from May to July of 1991, so pretty much it would have been empty for the summer. Right here, if we turn to the left, in the film it kind of looks like a alley that the trash truck drives down and swoops around the corner, but it's actually this sort of parking lot kind of driveway situation where we see a shot, I'm presuming from one of these windows here, as best as I can tell. It's difficult to tell. But this doorway is definitely the doorway that was used for quite a bit of the movie, establishing shots in various scenes. The sheriff parked out front here. Ernest parked out front at one point. Eartha Kitt's character comes out the door to get on her bike. So definitely this door was used quite a bit. Like I said, I would have loved to have been able to see the inside of this to see if the gymnasium, if there is a gymnasium here, and if it's what was used for those party scenes, but I'm not totally sure. I don't have any way to verify that. All I know is the exteriors are, all of the school shots are this building 100%. A quick update here. After I began editing, I really wanted to find out if the inside of Robertson Academy was used for the interiors of the classroom and the Halloween party scenes, and so I did a bit more research. Firstly, I got gutsy enough to go back and hold my phone up to the window of the gymnasium, and I believe you can see how the windows are grouped together in a similar way to the background of the scene where Ernest presents the troll with authentic Bulgarian miak. I have no idea where he found some this time of year. We've covered most of the major filming locations in the film now. There's just a few minor places that we'll look at. These were mostly quick shots, and we're going to start here in a part of town known as Hillsboro Village. One of the transition scenes showing Ernest driving the trash truck through town was shot right here. We're just south of Vanderbilt University, and at the corner of 21st Avenue and Ackland Avenue. Today there's a Jenny's Ice Cream on that corner, but in the film it was still Henry Schofield's photography studio, and it was on that corner for many, many years. Next up, the second trash truck driving scene. This building here on Union Street in downtown Nashville is almost virtually unchanged from the early 90s, despite the city having grown up around it. I believe at the time this was a law office, but it is now the world-famous Grumpy's Bail Bonds. Heading back to East Nashville, and pretty near 5 Points, is the East Nashville Library, which was used in Ernest Goes to Jail as an actual filming location. But in Ernest Scared Stupid, it's just a drive-by location at night. And finally is the sheriff's house, his personal residence. This is in a section of town called Westmead, an area, unsurprisingly, west of central Nashville, between Belmead and Bellevue. This house has had some renovations, but it is still pretty much the same shape as it was when Ernest went to visit in the middle of the night. Finally, there are a few places that I've never figured out. Places like this driveway where the kids talk with the bike. It could be out in Westmead, or it could just be somewhere else. There's a mailbox at the end of the driveway, so I think it's a home and not at Shelby Park, but I actually have no idea. Now, places like these roads and trees, I do think is Shelby Park, but I've never found exactly where. A lot of things can change in a tree and wooded area in 35 years. Here's a little rock wall that was used for a couple of scenes. And I actually found a rock wall very much like it near Shelby Park Golf Course, but I just can't verify that it's the same. The trees just didn't look like the same trees that were there in years ago. But who knows? A lot of stuff could have grown up. Some stuff could have been cut down. I just don't have any way to verify that it's the same. The last place that I never found was the Briarville City Garage, where Ernest worked and did so many famous characters. My guess would be it's somewhere in East Nashville, but don't know. That building might not exist anymore. It might just be a place I've never seen. So, unless you're a Botswanian lumberjack, we may never know. What do you think? Do you know any of these outstanding places that I couldn't find? I'd love to hear if you know them, or if you eventually find them and figure out where they are. That brings a close to this video. Hopefully, if you love Ernest Scared Stupid like I do, you found seeing those places in modern times interesting and fun. I'll see y'all later.